Hello, my name is Jay, and today we're going to be talking about Ryzen 2 or the Ryzen 20 series. And this is something I am a little confused about by myself. These basically are just higher clock speed chips. There's nothing new about them. And with all due respect, not trying to offend anybody, I have an 1800X in my system, so I officially can pretty much say this. I don't see a huge, gigantic point in making something that's just a slightly bit higher clock speed. I would have personally preferred to see something a little bit more, core count heavy, maybe get a couple more cores, 10 cores, maybe along with the higher clock speed, because a higher clock speed, I mean, nothing above 4.3 gigahertz is not necessarily something I would consider, big. Now, I understand gaming is what a lot of people, what AMD was trying to get out here. And I understand that, most people are like, hey, that's a good thing. But most of the people that have the Ryzen chips are some type of content creators or workstation based. Which means, while yes, we do prefer to game, the core speed is not the main concern here. And I know some people do, and I mean, it's a good chip. The 1600 is a really good chip for gaming and having a good mix in between the two. But I see like a high clock speed, and especially since there's no 2800X, I really don't see necessarily a point, because it just seems like it's missing something. Like, obviously, I feel like it's just a slightly, like, you overclocked it. Like, the 1800X goes up to 4.2 gigahertz if you're lucky. And I really think that with the turbo boost at 4.3, I believe, for the 2000 or 2700X, I feel like this is just, a small step up. I understand that's overclocked, and I understand we might be able to get up to some higher core counts. And yes, a higher core, higher speeds will make a difference. But I really just feel like, I personally was expecting, I should probably rephrase that differently. I was expecting something more on the core count side, rather than just having a slightly, increased, core speed, which would be good for gamers. But then again, if you're getting something like for this chip to game on, even stream on, you're going to get something like a 1600, which was not as high of a core speed, or a 2600, which obviously is not higher as the same as the top tier model. And if you're doing gaming on that, then that's kind of that separate thing. I feel like this is the top end should be workstation, and I feel like the mid-range, what people are going to be more gaming on, trying to get a budget gaming chip, I feel like that's definitely more something that should be higher clock speed rather than the... I feel like they kind of skewed it upward to the top tier as the higher clock speed rather than the mid-range, is when most people are actually going to be gaming on it. I mean, I do think the clock speed is a good idea, but I really do feel like it's missing a top tier model. And I mean, while it's going to basically be equivalent to the 8700K, it does still feel like you're not going to see a gigantic difference in FPS over, this slight... I mean, think about it this way. It's 3.6 gigahertz on the 1800X, and this top tier, I believe, is 3.8 gigahertz base speed and goes up to 4.0 turbo, and I believe the turbo on the 2700X is 4.3. So I mean, you're looking at it, you're only getting 0.3 gigahertz increase in turbo speed, and I personally don't see that as something that should make, quantify a huge price jump, B, a whole nother series. I understand it's a little bit more efficient. I understand you're supposed to be able to have higher overclocking capabilities, but still, that really doesn't quantify a whole new series. I feel like they could release another higher end chip that would still accomplish that same goal, rather than releasing something across the board that's, in most cases, just a small bit above the default clock speed, and that's the only really big improvement. Now, I understand there's other things in there, like, more cache, things like that, but I feel like it's just... I really feel like a better model up would have been a better way to go. And I mean, I don't mean to hate on AMD, but it really does just seem something's not right. And I feel like, investing all this money into something that's R&D when you could get something with a slightly lower clock speed for much less, when this first Zen model kind of comes obsolete, will be, much more easier to do. And I mean, I was really, as I said, hoping for something like a 10-core, 4.2 gigahertz boost, and that would have been pretty good. Like, then at least you're getting 4 more cores and you've got yourself some boost. I just feel like it was really... I would go out and buy something if they had like a, you know, maybe a mid-range between the Threadripper and the... Because they're not making another Threadripper model. There's still the regular Threadripper. And I feel like they could have gone and put something in between them that would have been a higher-end model with a higher clock speed that was definitely oriented to gaming content creators. Because it just feels like, as I said, really pointless. My opinion. There you go. I said my opinion. Pointless. And I mean, I don't mean to hate on AMD, as I said, but I mean, I have the 1800X in my system, but I'm not going to be upgrading whatsoever. I don't feel there's a point, especially paying the, you know, $300 and something when the processor I had came out, it was like $500, and that was the thing. And I feel like, I mean, I could go for something that was, if there was like a nice chip for $500, maybe a 12 core. I mean, I do know that that's what the Threadripper 1900 is. So I feel like maybe something in between, maybe a 10 core would be something that would be with a higher clock speed and higher overclocking capabilities would be something I would be willing to go out and buy rather than just get something that's 0.3 gigahertz faster. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, I'm sorry. And I mean, if I were to ask you guys, if you wanted to know an honest opinion, I feel like we'll really have to see what the benchmarks are. But from what we know now and what we're expecting, it just doesn't seem feasible, at least to me, and not definitely something I won't be upgrading. But it may be for a used system market. I feel like AMD could rather spend this on developing APUs that have higher graphics, because that's a good way to solve the graphics situation now, rather than, you know, I feel like that's where it could have been spent, rather than just developing a whole other chipset with a slight bit clock speed increase, which I understand will help some games, but now that every single game is going multi-threaded, it really does not seem that important as it used to. So thank you for watching. Hope you see you around, and goodbye.